Well, hello everyone. This is Fadi, and I want to thank all of you for joining us briefly for this promo about the 2024 CIRA Online Conference. And I'm going just to share something real quickly with you guys before I introduce one of our guest speakers during the conference. And basically, the conference will start next week on Friday, October 11th, and also on Saturday, October 12th. And the conference will focus on the usual tracks, which is reaching out to Muslim refugees, reaching out to Muslim women, and also the second day, which is Saturday, we are going to be talking about reaching out to Muslim immigrants and students. But the final track on Saturday is our favorite one, of course, and the most popular one, and that's the Apologetics track. And that's the one that typically we invite amazing apologists and speakers, world-renowned ones, if I may add, and really privileged and honored that they typically would agree to come to our conference. With us here, one of those amazing speakers, of course, we're talking about Dr. David Wood. David, it's an honor, brother, and awesome to have you. It's been a while since we've done a live stream together, and I know you're busy, but thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule just to help me promote this conference for next week.
Yeah, no problem. These are pretty good times.
Amen. So, brother, why don't you tell people about the topic that we've agreed on that you wanted to discuss next week?
Well, for my session, I know other people have different sessions and so on, but for my session, we're going to be talking about why more Muslims are changing their mind on what the Quran says about the crucifixion. Lots of people don't know that there's always been a minority position in the Muslim world. So among Muslims, there's always been a minority position that the Quran isn't actually denying the crucifixion of Jesus. What it's denying in Surah 4, verse 157, because keep in mind, that's all there is. That's all there is on this issue in the Quran. It's one verse, Surah 4, verse 157, that basically the minority position is that this verse isn't denying that Jesus was crucified, even though it says they didn't kill him and nor did they crucify him. That it's not denying that Jesus was crucified. What it's actually denying is that they got the victory over Jesus that they thought. So you've always had a minority position that interprets this in light of other Quran passages, like Surah 3, verse 55, which we've done a live stream on that before, where we went through that, and you said, reading that as an Arab, you would conclude that this is talking about Jesus being killed and then raised from the dead. So basically, what you've had historically, most Muslims go to Surah 4, verse 157 and say, oh, this is clearly denying the crucifixion of Jesus. Therefore, these other passages that sound like Jesus did die, we have to reinterpret those. There's always been the reverse, where you have people saying, no, these other passages talk about Jesus dying, and so we have to interpret 4:157 in light of these other passages. And so they conclude that what it's saying there is like when the Quran says, don't say of those who've died fighting for Allah that they are dead. They're alive with Allah. So it's saying, hey, you didn't really kill him. You didn't really crucify him. And so you've always had that as a minority position. But I've just been seeing a lot more of that minority position, especially over the past year. It's to the point now where if I say, hey, the Quran denies the crucifixion of Jesus, isn't that silly? And I point that out, I'll get a bunch of Muslims saying, liar, the Quran doesn't deny the crucifixion. That's just what some dumb Muslims think. That's how people will actually respond. So anyway, it's not just that. You have had entire groups that have a different perspective, like Ismaili Shias. So Ismaili Shias, just as a sect of Islam, they massively favor the view that Jesus was actually crucified and that he did die. Then you've got the Ahmadis. They believe that he was nailed to a cross, but that he survived the crucifixion and that's the miracle. You still have the dominant position is still that the Quran is denying Jesus was ever crucified. And so most Muslims still believe in some sort of substitution theory. But again, I'm seeing way more Muslims than I've ever seen before. Will call you a liar if you say that the Quran denies the crucifixion of Jesus. And so it's basically starting to shift. It's starting to shift more. And it's to me, it's the exact same parallel where for years they're arguing perfect preservation, dot for dot, letter for letter. And now they don't defend that anymore because after decades of exposing it, they finally catch on. And you start changing positions in the Ummah. Same thing with the scientific miracles, that for decades it was, the scientific miracles, these are the proof of Islam. And we spend decades exposing these arguments and so on. And finally they start catching on after a while. But it looks like that's happening on some other issues. Now you have more and more Muslims acknowledging that Jesus is crucified, and they're reinterpreting 4:157. You have more and more Muslims now who are becoming concerned about the Islamic dilemma, realizing, oh, wait a minute, the Quran is affirming these scriptures. What do we do about this? So these are actually, I don't know, it's just the dawn of the internet and us being able to get access to Muslims wherever they are. It's just changing everything. And it's the same situation over and over again. For 14 centuries, Muslim leaders are able to keep their people in kind of a bubble where they don't hear criticisms of anything that's being said. And now Muslims are hearing criticisms of their positions, and they're having to modify their positions on various issues. And one of the things that's been a source of embarrassment for the past couple of decades is it's being put to them that they're really out of line and out of touch with history if they're denying the crucifixion of Jesus, because, as you know, historians count it as one of the best established facts of ancient history. And historians will say that it's the number one fact about Jesus that we know. Apart from his existence, the main thing we know about Jesus is that he was crucified. In other words, if you were to rank the things that we know in order of the most certain, his death by crucifixion is at the top there. And so when Muslims deny that, it really, really, really makes it presents them with a problem and so on. And so they're rethinking it. And these are good times, because guess what? If you conclude that the Quran is not denying the death and crucifixion of Jesus, and then in these passages, it also says that Allah raised him up, now it's starting to really sound like you've got death and resurrection there. And so if we can get them to get their minds around this issue and to realize that Jesus was crucified, that he did rise from the dead, all we've got left basically is convince them that he's Lord. So again, that's why I said these are good times.
Absolutely. And everyone, you've heard the man, and you are going to be learning about something that has been denied for the longest time. I remember growing up, of course, denying the crucifixion. I've always looked at 4:157, Surah 4 or chapter 4:157 with that lens. And even though when I came to Christ, I could not really defend it, because I remember when I was arguing with people before coming to Christ, I would use that verse to tell them that Jesus wasn't crucified. I remember a couple of times, some of them says, I'm really not reading that it says he was never crucified. All you're showing me is just a verse that said something about someone who was crucified in his place. And it was a little puzzling to me at that moment, because I just didn't know what to say and what to do with that. And of course, I always thought maybe I'm not really that good of a Muslim at that moment, and I should have really known some of my other sources. But as you dig deeper, you begin to realize really there's a problem. I've always been in favor of this view, David. If Jesus was never crucified, why in the world would the author of the Quran even bother to address the crucifixion in the first place?
Yeah, it's and that's the thing that people miss. Muslims read 4:157 as if it's a response to Christians, right? So Christians claim Jesus died on the cross for sins. And so you would think if the Quran is denying the crucifixion, that this would be a response to Christians and it would be somehow correcting us. That passage is not a response to Christians at all. It's the context of Surah 4 verse 157 is Allah responding to Jews. Allah's responding to Jews, and it's responding to the various things that Jews have said. And one of the things that Jews say, according to the Quran, was that they were basically mocking. They're mocking Jesus, saying, "What are you talking about? How can this guy be? How can this guy be someone special? How can he be the Messiah when we crucified him? We crucified him. What are you talking about? We crucified him." And then so when the Quran is saying, "No, you didn't. No, you didn't," you have a few different options as a Muslim based on other things that the Quran says, and we'll be going through them in my session as to a couple different interpretations that are acceptable in Islam. In other words, if you read the Quran, I would have to say, these interpretations of 4:157 are completely acceptable based on other Quran verses. And so Muslims have reinterpreted the passage based on other things that the Quran says. And in addition to that, most Muslims just haven't thought through this, right? In your mind as a Muslim, the way you're brought up, you're presented with this. It's, oh, look at the Christian view. The Christian view is that Jesus, this amazing, miracle-working, sinless person, was crucified. He was crucified. But why would God allow that? So the Islamic view, according to them, is more just. It's more wonderful and amazing because it shows Allah rescuing Jesus and saving him and having this happen to someone else. And so they think we have a much better view. We believe in a Jesus who was rescued and protected. You believe in a Jesus who wasn't protected and wasn't rescued by Allah, and therefore we have a superior view. But they don't think through the implications. And the main implication that they wrestle with, but you have to point it out to them. But once you point it out to them, they really have no explanation. But the idea is, if the most common Muslim view is correct, Allah tricked people into believing that Jesus died. So he took someone else, disguised him, made him look like Jesus, and then this other person was crucified in Jesus' place. But everyone thought that it was Jesus because Allah miraculously disguised this person. If that view is correct, then we have to wonder, where did literally billions of people get the idea that Jesus died by crucifixion? Where did literally billions of people, not just Christians, billions of people believe that Jesus died by crucifixion? Most Muslims believe Jesus didn't die by crucifixion. So if we say, okay, we believe he died by crucifixion, but you say he didn't die by crucifixion, where did we get the idea that Jesus died by crucifixion? Where did we get that, what is, according to you, a false idea? They haven't thought through this, but if the Muslim view is correct, we got that idea from Allah. And so when Muslims talk about the gospel being corrupted, we open the gospel right now. We open the gospel right now, Al-Fadi, and we open it up, and it says Jesus died by crucifixion. They say, aha, that's been corrupted. Okay, who corrupted that? Don't blame the Apostle Paul. Don't blame the Council of Nicaea. Allah. We got that idea from Allah. Allah is the one who tricked and deceived people into believing that Jesus died by crucifixion. So if you take it from there, then wait, Christianity is kind of based on the idea that Jesus died on the cross for sins and rose from the dead. Where did we get the idea that he died on the cross? We got that from Allah. And so Muslims are stuck with this awkward position that Allah actually started Christianity by convincing people that Jesus died on the cross. And then Jesus followers are thinking, oh, there must be a reason for this. Oh, it's for our sins, something like that. You'd have to think that that's how we got that idea. Where'd we get that, though? That we got that from Allah. So don't blame the Apostle Paul for corrupting the Bible. Don't blame the Council of Nicaea. Blame Allah for corrupting the gospel of Jesus. And so they haven't thought through those things, but because we have so many Christians responding to it now, you have more and more Muslims. And I've experienced this a lot of times when Muslims say, we have a better view because you believe Jesus, the innocent guy, was crucified and treated horribly and Allah didn't protect him. What an awful view. We have a better view. Allah rescued him and protected him, and then someone else was crucified. See, this is a better view. And then you ask, okay, so wait, Allah's the one who corrupted the gospel? So we got the false idea that Jesus died by crucifixion from Allah. Even Jesus' followers, we know historically, came to believe that that he died by crucifixion. And so where did Jesus' followers get that idea? Allah tricked them, but according to the Quran, Jesus' followers were devout Muslims. So wait a minute now. Allah tricks and deceives devout Muslims and leads them astray for what? What's the great purpose? And Muslims never have a reason. They just say, oh, Allah knows best. And so you bring all these issues up. You bring up the historical evidence for the crucifixion. You point out that they're actually blaming Allah for deliberately deceiving literally billions of people and starting a false religion in the process. And you put all these things together. And then the remaining factor, again, is, of course, you have what the Quran says. But in addition to that, you have the problem in the commentaries, in the Muslim commentaries, where you can go to 10 different Muslim commentaries and they'll give you 10 completely different explanations of what happened there. Of what happened in the crucifixion. You'll have ones that say no, Judas was crucified. You'll say no, that it was a soldier who was crucified. You'll have passages that say that it was one of Jesus' followers who was crucified in his place and that he was a volunteer and so on. And it becomes clear if you can read 10 different commentaries and they give 10 different explanations and they're giving names and so on, and it just doesn't line up. It's clear that Muslims are just making up stories about this. And so you put all that together, wait a minute, the only stories we have about what actually happened were clearly fabricated because they all contradict each other. The Quran isn't clearly denying the crucifixion because of other things the Quran says. If you want to reinterpret 4:157, there are passages that can give you an idea of what that passage is actually saying. And if all of this helps you avoid portraying Allah as this cosmic trickster who leads Muslims astray and undermines the work of his own prophets, then I would say it's actually a better view. And it's a better view to reinterpret 4:157. And so we just have to share this with Muslims. Again, the outcome here is we can get more Muslims agreeing that Jesus died on the cross, agreeing that Jesus rose from the dead. They'll still at this point deny his divine nature, but it's always, these are good stepping stones.
Absolutely. And of course, I love the fact that you mentioned something about Allah is responsible for this deception. It's kind of interesting in verse 158, right after he did brag about that he is, they deceived and we deceived and we are the great or the greatest, greater deceiver. Or the best of deceivers, if I want to use the language of the Quran itself. So Allah is bragging about himself being the best of deceivers. And yet, what our Muslim friends will always tell us, like, no, this means he's the best of planners. Well, that's interesting how they always tend to reinterpret things. And I'm really excited that at least the new generation of Muslims and possibly even some of the older generation now, they're paying attention to social media, seeing for themselves things that they've been denied in the past, possibly for whatever reason, to access. And now they're also hearing about some of their own sources, like you stated, can give you multiple interpretations, as at least for them to begin to think deeper about this. And you're right. I mean, it's good to at least for them to accept his crucifixion, resurrection. We'll get there when it comes to his deity. It's just one step at a time, but we're thank God that at least their minds are starting to open up to the truth.
And the path forward here is the Dawa guys. I've said this before, but I've been to prison. But I've never seen people who lie as freely with as little concern of consequences as the Dawa guys. They'll just make things up left and right. So they'll make up entire arguments like perfect preservation. They'll make up entire arguments like the scientific miracles and so on. And later on, when these arguments are exposed, they'll just move on and make up new arguments and so on. But they don't realize that they're living in an age right now. Right now, we're in the middle of the age where a Dawa guy will come out, like Ali Dawa came out and says, the scientific miracles got debunked. Don't use that anymore. It's got debunked. And he thinks, okay, fine, I'll just move on from there. No, you don't quite move on from there because it's in a Muslim's head. It's in a Muslim's head. Wait, you guys just spent my entire life telling me about the scientific miracles and now you admit that it was just a lie? Wait a minute. You guys just told me my entire life that the reason we know the Quran is from God is because it's miraculous, perfect, dot for dot, letter for letter preservation. And now you admit that it was all a lie. And the Muslim, the Dawah guys are they're just moving on. Okay, here's the next argument. Yeah. And so what's actually happening though is, wait a minute, I'm noticing a pattern here. You guys lie and lie and lie and lie and lie until it's exposed, and then you say, okay, that was a lie, and then you move on as if nothing happened. Wait a minute, you guys just lied to me. You guys just lied to me my entire life. And so you're looking for this light switch moment in your Muslim friend's mind where, okay, I was told my entire life, perfect preservation, that turned out to be false, which means maybe I can't trust these guys. I was told my entire life, scientific miracles. Now my leaders admit it was a lie, which means I was being lied to the entire time. The more you pile on to that, the more examples you pile on, the more doubts you're causing about whether they can trust their leaders. And so if you can show your Muslim friend, hey, you've also been told all your life, no, it wasn't Jesus who was crucified. It was Judas who was crucified, because Allah miraculously disguised Judas, made him look like Jesus, and then Judas was crucified. You see, it's a more just position. And then they come to realize the numerous reasons for thinking that is complete nonsense. Then it's more weight on the balance against the reliability of their religious leaders, because the light switch moment you're looking for is, wait a minute, this guy that I've built my entire life around, this leader who I trusted, he told me this and it turned out to be a lie. He told me that, it turned out to be a lie. He told me this other thing, it turned out to be wrong. He gave me this interpretation, told me what to believe, it turns out to be wrong. Okay, if he keeps being wrong, maybe I can't trust this guy, and maybe I need to go and investigate this for myself. And that's when hopefully they'll be re-examining their views of not just Jesus' crucifixion, but also who he is.
Amen. Again, everyone, I hope you are enjoying this short promo about the conference next week. And of course, Dr. David Wood just shared with us the topic that he will be addressing, and his topic will be on Saturday, October 12th. But we invite all of you, of course, you can go to our social media pages. You can even go to the description box right below this video to see more information about the conference. And right here in front of you in the banner, you can see the link where you can go and explore and then register if you like. It's 2 days conference, next Friday, October 11th, and next Saturday, October 12th. We have 4 tracks. On Saturday, and on Friday, we have 2 tracks, and on Saturday, we have 2 tracks. The ones on Friday will deal with refugees and Muslim women. The one on Saturday will deal with immigrants and students, and Muslims in general, for that matter. But also, it will have the apologetic track. We have Dr. David Wood, we have Dr. Jay Smith, and we have recordings by Dr. Tony Costa. Reverend Anthony Rogers will be with us as well, and we'll have a panel discussion at the end. So I encourage all of you to share this with others. The time is not too late yet. We have a 20% discount that I requested the team to keep it open for people to make it easier for them. We understand that there are some challenges economically speaking, but we price it also at a very, very, very minimal cost, just to cover the cost of the platform and also some of the love gifts that we give to our speakers for their time. Again, thank you so much, brother. Is there anything else you would like to share?
Nope. That's just a quick little outline. But yep, we'll have all the sources. We'll have all the sources for you at the conference.
Very good. Thank you so much. And hopefully you and I can actually do a video series on this particular thing, because it will be interesting to have it somewhere where people can refer to it and begin to use it. Like you said, the point is to use it with our Muslim friends and help them begin to unlock their mindset that has been basically programmed to believe one way, and now they have to really change their way of thinking. Thank you as always, brother. It's always fun to have you. And also, I've been following you, and I don't know if you've noticed on Twitter, I'm one of your followers as well. And I love the topics you bring up there as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Until next promo video, blessings to all. Take care.